In last week's video, I talked about the importance of using a simple presentation structure, and I ended that video by saying there's this remaining question: what is an example of a simple presentation structure that we can follow when we're drafting our presentation? So as promised, this week we'll go ahead and tackle that question. There are a variety of different simple presentation structures that we can use that would serve us well and our audience well, and you can see 10 options on your screen, starting with the rhetorical question. And what I'm going to do is go through these one by one from top to bottom and elaborate just a little bit, get in a little bit more detail on it. So we start off with the rhetorical question. If we use the rhetorical question as our presentation structure, we may initiate the speech with a statement, such as, many technologists today argue that the rise of artificial intelligence is a threat to humanity. So having posed that rhetorical question, we now know exactly what we need to do with the rest of our speech. That we must answer that question and then elaborate on that answer. So we might dive into the task by saying, I contend that the answer to that question is no. And then, of course, the rest of our speech would have to do with elaborating on why the answer is no to the question that artificial intelligence is a threat to humanity. Very simple. Number 2, chronology. A few years ago, I went to a speech that was delivered by Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak. He was talking to the San Ramon, California chapter of Rotary Club, and he gave this chronological account of how he became interested in electronics as a young boy, how he studied engineering in college, and eventually partnered with Steve Jobs to create and develop Apple Computer. Now, chronologies are not a sophisticated way of telling a story, but they are about the easiest way to tell one. And audience members have no trouble tracking a chronology progress. That's a couple of the strengths of the chronology. Very simple, straightforward, and the audience can easily track where we're going. Number 3, the problem-solution structure. So a member of Congress using this presentation structure might tell his or her audience that the problem is a tax code that is far too complex and riddled with loopholes for special interests, and the solution is to abolish the current code in favor of a flat tax with no deductions. Next up is how it happened. An example might be, how is it that human life expectancy continues to expand in the United States, even though there's tens of millions of citizens who are uninsured and don't receive adequate health care? We can then simply say, here are the reasons why that has come to pass, how it happened. And we're off and running with that particular structure. Next up is issues and actions, or issues, actions. When using this particular construct, we first want to list the issues or challenges being confronted, and then follow that by the actions that we're taking to rectify that situation. So as an example of the challenges being confronted, we might say our company is facing dwindling brand recognition, declining sales, and shrinking profit margins. But we follow that with the actions that we're taking to rectify that situation. So we might say we are battling those trends with a new corporate development strategy that includes bigger marketing expenditures, a more rigorously trained sales team, and streamlined supply chain management. Next up, we have features, benefits. And this structure is commonly used in sales presentations. Basically, the presenter explains his or her product, its various features, and then the important benefits that the buyer will derive from those features. The next one on the list, case study, is another presentation structure that's often used in sales presentations. The case study is an excellent storytelling opportunity. It's also a model that allows the salesperson, in the event that is being used for sales purposes, to give a specific example of how, for instance, another company, I mean, they're presenting to a company and they're using a case study to show how another company had solved the very same problem by using the product or services being offered. Now, in the event of a case study or the features benefit structure, obviously you don't need to be a salesperson. It doesn't have to be a sales presentation to use those, but I offer those up as examples. So next on the list, argument fallacy. So often the conventional wisdom that we accept is founded on misleading or false information or reasoning. So as an example, and this is genuine research that I came across, social scientists have concluded that the longer people live, the more healthcare resources they'll consume. That's the argument that we have long accepted. It turns out that it's a fallacy because new research on end-of-life care shows that if you live to age 100, the last 5 years of your life cost just 1/3 the medical expenses of people who live to age 80. So again, that's genuine research I came across. Next up is the compare-contrast model. This is yet another popular sales presentation blueprint, and really for good reason. People make decisions by comparing their options, whether it's a professional service, a job opportunity, or what have you. One of the selling situations where compare-contrast presentations are constantly being used is with political campaigns. You'll have political candidates who are forever saying, in a variety of different ways, compare my record with my opponent's record, and then basically concluding that the contrast couldn't be more stark. So that's the compare and contrast model, which obviously can be adapted to a lot of different situations. And then finally, we have the numerical model. The numerical structure is actually a favorite among a lot of bloggers and other media members, and it's really a presentation structure I've used for this video, 10 simple presentation structures. Other examples might be 3 foods that eliminate belly fat, or the 5 best overseas options for a comfortable retirement. So it's about as simple a presentation structure as there is. The numerical method for presenting information, you kind of just tick off the points you want to make one by one. Nobody really gets lost in drafting a presentation of that kind. We don't get lost when we're drafting it. And it's great for audience members because they know at all times the degree of progress that we've made and the approximate duration of the presentation that remains. So always remember, I mean, that's the 10 simple presentation structures, but always remember that we can combine a couple of those presentation structures into a single presentation. So for example, we can marry the rhetorical structure with the numerical structure in this way. We might say, there are many technologists who believe that artificial intelligence poses a threat to humanity. I contend that that observation is false for 3 reasons. So there you have the rhetorical and the numeric structure combined. You can take a couple different presentation structures and actually get them to work seamlessly, depending on the situation. So any of these simple presentation structures can make the writing of our next presentation far less difficult and also make it much easier to present because we're not overloaded with information. We have a clean structure, so we head to the dais confident in our ability to effectively convey the material that we've taken up there. We don't overload ourselves. We don't give ourselves too much to memorize. We don't give ourselves a complicated structure, and we also make sure that we're not creating some kind of data dump for our audience, something that will bore and confuse and basically punish our audience, the last thing in the world we want to do. So when we use a simple presentation structure, we want to make sure that we adhere to the less is more concept of presenting. In other words, if we did a numerical structure and it was 25 reasons why eating a healthy diet is a good thing, it's too big. It's too many points that we're trying to make. Anything beyond 10, unless it's very rapid fire, is going to be overwhelming. So less information is actually more. Go with our very best information, and we can actually leave audiences hungry for more rather than less. The last thing we want is to leave our audience members sitting in their seats, shifting around, anxious for us to bring the presentation to an end. It's much better to come up short on our time and leave the audience wishing that we were giving them more information, because what we've done, we've distilled it down to a bundle of information that's so compelling they would actually like more, but we've left them hungry for more. That's the way we want to end a presentation. So bottom line is this: step number one in effective public speaking is to use the right presentation structure, a simple presentation structure. Pick the one that's right for the material that you're looking to convey. Good luck with your presentations.